Welcome back to the show. My name is Matthew Lucci, and this is The Truth. Thank you very much for joining us once again on the American Liberty Media Network. Always a pleasure to have you here listening. Whether it's on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, wherever else you're finding us, thank you very much. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe so that you can stay tuned for more of these great episodes. And more of our guests. We got a great guest coming up today, Jace Yarbrough from Texas Senate District 30, here to break down what's going on in North Texas, particularly in a race where you have an individual who doesn't even live in the district, but is running for Senate District 30. He's going to break all that down for us, tell us why he's running, tell us what's going on behind the scenes so that we can pull back the curtain and get to the truth. On a nationwide level, Speaker Mike Johnson is in hot water once again for basically doing what all politicians do. Lie, deceive, break promises, and try to grab power. That's politics in a nutshell. Politics in a nutshell is this: lies, deceit, and power grabs. Throw in some broken promises for good measure. That's what politics seems to be to those of us on the outside looking in. And right now, we have Speaker Mike Johnson, who's basically caving to Democrat demands in Washington, D.C., and going back on a lot of the promises that he made to the Republicans in order to get elected Speaker after Kevin McCarthy was ousted. So there's an article. This one's from CNN. I'm not a fan of CNN, and I'm sure that most of y'all aren't either, but it's important for us to look at sources from all sides of an issue. And CNN put this out. This article by four folks: Melanie Zanona, Manu Raju, Annie Grayer, and Lauren Fox. This came out today. House GOP erupts into name-calling and fresh threats to Johnson over effort to pass aid. Let's start here. All right. Outlets reported Thursday morning that, according to multiple GOP sources, Johnson is being lobbied by his members to raise the threshold required to trigger the procedure to oust the Speaker, a move that would help ensure that the Louisiana Republican can pass foreign aid bills and still keep his job without needing to rely on Democrats to bail him out. Now, this is the problem. When Mike Johnson became Speaker, they adopted the rules that they placed on Kevin McCarthy that allowed a single Republican to come up and say, I would like to initiate a motion to vacate the chair. A single Republican is all that it took to start that. And that was Matt Gaetz last time. That provision's still in there with Mike Johnson. And that means if there's a single member of the Republican Party that disagrees with the way that he's using the speakership, and there's a lot of reasons to disagree with him, they can come up and say, look, I would like to motion to vacate the chair. Now, this time around, Marjorie Taylor Greene has threatened to do that to Mike Johnson because of a lot of these foreign aid bills. Now, a lot of this is giving money to Ukraine, to Israel, to a bunch of other countries around the world, and there are $0 in there to secure our own border. And that has a lot of Republicans, a lot of the more conservative Republicans, upset about what Speaker Mike Johnson is doing. He's bowing to Democrats' demands and not doing what he promised the folks on the right that he would do. Therefore, based on that original agreement, they should be motioning to oust the Speaker. All right, let's go down a little bit here. Tensions were running high in the House on Thursday morning. At one point, Johnson was surrounded on the House floor by a number of, quote, far-right lawmakers in a heated discussion. Johnson was essentially pinned against the back wall of the House floor with members on all sides of him, with the Speaker constantly pivoting his head as he responded to members speaking to him. The group implored Johnson to give them assurances that he would not raise the threshold on the motion to vacate, and the Speaker would not commit, leaving many of the lawmakers fuming and some even saying this was their red line that would propel the motion to oust him forward. So basically, they're saying, look, don't increase that threshold, don't take our power away, and he's not taking that off the table. Basically, he's the guy in power right now, and he's grabbing for more of it. He wants more security in his job to be able to do what he wants to do, regardless of whether those who put him in that position actually want him to do those things. If those people actually want him to be sending billions and billions of our dollars to Ukraine. There are a lot of reps that put him in to the speakership that don't agree with that. And he's doing it anyway. So, at that point, I would make the argument that they should be motioning to vacate. And I would actually implore Republicans to consider what U.S. Representative Eli Crane out of Arizona has suggested, that the Speaker announce his resignation ahead of time, rather than going through all of this again like we did with Kevin McCarthy. The Speaker should announce his resignation now to take effect a month from now or a few weeks from now. Set a date. Announce your resignation for that date. And then allow that period of time for the Republicans to pick a new Speaker, so that we don't devolve into the chaos that happened when Kevin McCarthy was ousted. It's time to get back to doing the business of the people, and we can't do that if we don't have a Speaker. Is Mike Johnson the right guy? I don't know. I had hope for Mike Johnson, as I'm sure a lot of y'all listening had hope for Mike Johnson. A lot of reps, a lot of members of Congress had hope for Mike Johnson. But as Representative from Florida, Anna Paulina Luna, said, that, quote, I think a bigger issue at hand, though, right now, is why is it that we have messaging coming from the Speaker that's contradictory to what happened a few months back. The Speaker has changed his tune on a lot of issues since he's gotten in. And I think it's time for him to be given a reality check. And whether that means removing him entirely or pushing him to step down from the speakership. Say, look, Mike Johnson has not fulfilled his promises. Mike Johnson has lied to members of the House, and he's lied to the people here in the United States. He's lied to conservatives. We can't keep passing these mega bills that hand out money to everyone all over the world and do nothing to protect our homeland. So, the Speaker should announce his resignation and allow the Republicans to choose a successor to start the day that Mike Johnson resigns. Now, you may remember that Kevin McCarthy was one of the shortest serving speakers in U.S. history. In fact, he served as Speaker for 270 days, which was just longer than the number 2 guy, who served 258 days. That was U.S. Representative Michael Kerr back in 1875. And then there's one guy, Theodore Pomeroy, who was Speaker for a single day. And that was because the current Speaker at the time was inaugurated as Vice President of the United States. And so Theodore Pomeroy, whose term was set to expire the next day anyway, was selected as the Speaker of the House and was sworn in, served as Speaker for 1 calendar day. Now, Kevin McCarthy, 270 days, the 3rd shortest serving Speaker in U.S. history. Where would Mike Johnson stack up? Mike Johnson would beat him. He would be the 2nd shortest of all time. As of today, it's 176 days. If he resigns, he'd probably be around 180 to 190 days. I don't think Mike Johnson is making it to the end of this term. I really don't. Because those on the right, conservatives like myself, have decided, look, we are sick and tired of being lied to. We're sick and tired of people taking advantage of us just for our votes. And we're sick and tired of these power grabs from career politicians. That said, we have a great guest that we do need to be bringing on. His name is Jace Yarbrough from Senate District 30 in the great state of Texas to talk about what's going on in his race, because there's a lot of lying, deceit, and power grabs also happening in Texas Senate District 30. Without further ado, let's jump into that. Jace, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Matthew. I really appreciate it, and congrats on launching this new project.
Well, I appreciate it, and having such great guests on is one of the big perks of it. So, you and I met when we were out campaigning. We had a little bit of mutual territory. Jace, introduce yourself. Tell us about you. Tell us about Senate District 30, what you're running for, and why you decided to jump in this race.
Well, I am a seventh-generation Texan raised in a blue-collar family in a tiny town just outside Abilene, Texas. My mom's family hails from Haskell County, so that part of the state is home for me. I went down to the University of Texas at Austin, studied electrical engineering and government, and then joined the military, was active duty, Air Force, served as an engineer for them. Then my wife and I had our first. We wanted to raise kids back home near family. So I got out and went to Stanford Law School. That was a unique experience. I certainly did not fit into that crowd. Was there during Trump's election in 2016, and so got to see a lot of the insanity on the left sort of on full display. But got out of there, came back to Texas, worked for a very well-known, prestigious law firm, worked in their Dallas office for a number of years. And then the fall of 2021, I'm serving still on active duty as a reservist I was serving as a reservist in the Air Force and at my law firm. And as you know, and many of your listeners probably know, the world had been slowly losing its mind. So both the military and my employer implemented a fairly draconian vaccine policy that I was not going to comply with. And so resigned from my employment, pushed back against the Air Force, successfully did that. Pretty much ended my reserve career, though. I had recently been promoted early to major, so things were going really well on the reserve side, but that's all over now. I'm kind of persona non grata there, but that's okay. Was the right decision. And fortuitously, I ended up going in with a buddy who had a firm, and we now do conservative cause litigation, and I fight for causes that I love and that matter a lot to me. So it was a happy marriage of me having that free, needing to find where I was going to go next and what I was going to do, and him having that project and that firm. And so proud to have partnered with him, proud of the clients we have and the things we fight for. Started a classical Christian school with my wife in 2022 and some close friends. Like many other Texans and Americans, we were shocked by what was going on in schools that became evident through remote learning. We had been homeschooling our children since our oldest, who is now 11, was of age. Then started offering that to other families when we started a little classical Christian academy. Have always felt a vocational call to politics and stewarded that calling as an adult. Served as a precinct chair for the party, canvassed my neighborhood, make voter guides, the things that I read and study, in my quote-unquote free time, kind of oriented around culture and politics and economics, philosophy, things like that. Expected one day that I would run, didn't expect it to happen this quickly. My wife just had our 5th child, so our life is full with that and running the school and having a successful law practice. But this seat opened up really, really late. The incumbent announced on November the 7th that he was not seeking re-election, to the surprise of most. And as the filing deadline drew nearer, I, along with several other leaders in the district, were concerned about the only options in the race. This is a Trump plus 23 district, Senate District 30. It stretches from Denison and Sherman in the northeast over to Wichita Falls, down to Weatherford, wraps around Wise County to grab parts of Denton and Collin. Very red district, and if very red representation doesn't come from us, it's not going to come from anywhere. So after praying about it, the sense that I got from the big man upstairs was, you don't have to run in this race, but this is the kind of thing that I've called you to do. And if you decide to do it, I'll be there with you. So we got in on the last day to file and started putting in the work. A lot of good people came to help us. A lot of folks on the ground. Most in the political class wrote us off. They didn't give us much of a chance, but we continued to surprise everyone. And the question most people were asking in the primary was, well, can the front runner, who's now my opponent in the runoff, can he avoid a runoff altogether, even though there are 4 candidates in the race? And it turns out not only was the answer no, but the answer was no in a big way. So we garnered 34% in a 4-way race to my opponent's 36, and really proud of the points we put on the board. Really proud of the energy that is around our campaign. It's gratitude is the sense that I felt on election day as I was working the polls. Just privileged to be a part of something that was bigger than me, and happy to play my part to make sure that good representation happens for the people of Senate District 30 down in Austin.
Absolutely. And one of the big things that was really at the forefront of the campaign for the handful of months that the campaign was raging from November 7th all the way through March 5th, before we hit this runoff period, was the fact that the other guy in the race, whether you want to name him or not, he doesn't live in Senate District 30. Like so many state reps who they'll put a trailer up in someone else's district, and sometimes they'll get pushback from it. I have seen more pushback in this district about someone jumping in the race who doesn't live in the district. One, how did your opponent manage to convince a judge that he qualified to run? And 2, what has been the response from folks in Senate District 30 when they hear that the establishment-backed candidate in this race does not even live in their district?
So I don't mind naming Brent is my opponent's first name. Brent has never convinced the judge that he lives in the district. He likes to say that the judge has decided 3 or 4 times that he does. That's not true. The only judge to look at the question when Brent asked the judge, hey, this case doesn't have any merit, please throw it out. The judge said, nope, looks like there's something here, we're going to go to trial. But Brent and his lawyers have been successful at delaying that. So no judge has ever said, yeah, you live in the district. And in fact, the evidence strongly suggests otherwise. But Brent's nervous about putting his hand on a Bible and testifying, so they're trying to prevent that from happening. To give your readers a sense of why it is that the folks on the ground in this race are so exercised about this residency issue when they maybe are not so exercised in other races, is because this is the last in a long line of dishonest behavior and actions on the part of my opponent. He was the chair of the Denton County GOP, and so a lot of people that are in the district know him and have experience with him, and this is very much of a piece with with what he has been in his public presence and the kinds of things that he has done. So to give your folks an idea, he lives in a $1 million lakefront property in Senate District 12. His business rents the 3rd floor of a commercial office complex in Senate District 30. And he claimed when he filed his paperwork that he lived in and had been living in that 3rd floor of that commercial office complex for about a month and a half. That was his residence address. Under Denton City Code, it's a Class C misdemeanor and a $2,000 fine for every day you live there. Your readers may also know that we had an election on November the 7th, 2023. Brent voted in that election under his Senate District 12 address, and experienced voters will know that the first question you get asked by the election official when you walk in is, hey, this is the address we have on file for you. Is it correct? Do you still live there? And if the answer is no, I've moved, that's okay. If you've moved within the same county, you can prove up residency in the new place. Some documentation will go along with your voter record when that happens. Well, of course, no such documentation exists for Brent's voting record. Why? Because when he walked in and voted in the November 7th election, he said, yeah, that's my correct address. That's where I live. Why? Because he didn't know Senator Springer was going to announce that he was stepping down and he wasn't yet trying to fabricate residency in our district. So that's a little bit of why it matters here. I can go into some of the details of his past behavior in Denton County, but he basically left our party broken, divided, and dysfunctional because he is a tool of the political class, and the political class in Denton realized that they were losing control of the party apparatus, that grassroots conservatives were going to win. And so they started playing games and doing a couple of underhanded things to siphon off regular donations to the party into a privately controlled PAC that they control, and not the party. He's been twice censored by our conservative grassroots precinct chairs and formally condemned by them for his actions and behavior. Really is a train wreck. I have people, I'm the grassroots candidate, but I have a lot of what would normally be called establishment supporters who tell me things like, I have never seen our party, our county party, in the kind of abysmal state it is in 50 years. This is the lowest point that we have ever been. And that's a direct result of my opponent's leadership. So I think that's why people are exercised, not so much because specifically the residence issue, but because this is the kind of person that he is, and it's who he's been since he's been involved in politics in our county.
Yeah. And so I know we don't have too much more time with you, but could you go into very briefly that dynamic between Austin and Denton in particular, how they choose winners and losers, and why they want someone who has bankrupted their party, divided their party at the county level to represent an entire state Senate district in Austin?
Ultimately, you'll have to ask the political class down in Austin why they guys so bad. Some of the things that I have seen, the support we've garnered across Senate District 30 is incredibly strong. Not because I'm well connected or people knew me, really, a lot of people knew me before I got into this race, but because I have done things in the past that prove that I share the values and the principles that they treasure and that they want their representatives to go and fight for. I'm really proud of that. I've made fast friends. I know that we're going to be working together for many, many years to do good things for our district and our state, and that's a treasure. And the way I say it is, people think of this race as a David versus Goliath race. I say, no, this is a David. It looks like that if you're an Austin elite looking at it from the outside. But from the inside, this is a David and Jonathan race. Jonathan was, he's the biblical character who was the son of King Saul, right? He was the natural heir to the throne of Israel. He had the scepter within his grasp. But he set it aside because he recognized that the Lord was doing something else. And he wanted to be a part of that, because being a part of that was way more precious than anything he himself could fabricate or conjure up. And so there are thousands of Jonathans all across Senate District 30 who are helping us in our campaign because we have that common love. It is true that the Austin political class is trying very hard to make sure we do not win, and that my opponent does. Based on it's very clear from his track record in Denton County that he himself, he doesn't necessarily have his own convictions or vision or direction. He is open to and eager in many ways to be instructed as to what needs to happen next. And I get the political power game. If you are somebody who has power down in Austin, might look really appealing, at least in the short term, to have somebody that's going to come to you for marching orders every day. So perhaps that's the dynamic that's going on. I will say that there have been a lot of people who should be aligned with us, who claim to be grassroots conservatives, who are coming out on the other side. Now, why they're doing that, again, you'll have to ask them. But I do know that the powers that be down in Austin, at least some of them, are working very, very hard, making threats and promises to try and make it look as if my opponent is something other than what he is through these endorsements.
So when voters go to the polls May 28th of this year, what are they going to get from you starting next year if they send you down to Austin?
Yeah, well, let me clarify just a little bit. So the 28th is a Tuesday, and that is Election Day. You're absolutely right, Matthew. I'm encouraging my supporters, though, to go vote on Monday, May the 20th, which is the first day for early voting. Why? Because the 28th is the Tuesday after Memorial Day weekend. You're going to be coming back from a trip. Kids just got out of school. You're unpacking, trying to get settled in. Maybe you're still on vacation somewhere. So don't wait till the 28th. Go Monday the 20th. The difference between me and my opponent ultimately is I am predictable. I am predictably conservative, and I am predictably unmovable on my conservative principles. Right. So I stood up to the vax against the military. Against the vax when the military tried to pressure me to do it, put 12 years toward a military pension on the line. I pushed back when they tried to violate my First Amendment rights. Some of your readers may be familiar with First Liberty Institute out in Plano, which is a nonprofit law firm that represents those whose religious liberty has been infringed. I'm a client of First Liberty, and proudly so, because the Air Force came after me because of comments that I made at a buddy's retirement ceremony, basically saying the left was using the Department of Defense as a front in the culture war, and that undermined our ability to fight and win our nation's wars. I started a classical Christian school to give parents of all means the ability to form their children in biblical Christian values. In the work that I do in the courtroom, I fight for issues of life and medical freedom and religious liberty. This is who I am, and the kind of man that I have been is the kind of senator I will be. You don't have to wonder what I'm going to do, because these principles are the things that are going to guide me. Whatever you get from my opponent will be whatever the political class down in Austin wants to give you as a constituent of Senate District 30. And so if you want to trust your luck to that, he's your option. But if you want somebody who has the fire in his belly to fight for the things that you treasure and has the steel in his spine to stand up when the pressure's on, I'm your pick. And the fact that I'm running in this race is evidence that I won't cave whenever those powerful people come to me and say, you're going to do X, even though it's against the interests of your constituents, because if you don't, we will do X, Y, or Z to you. That's not the kind of pressure that I respond to. It's not the kind of pressure I have responded to, and I'm not going to start after I get elected.
Well, Jace, I am so glad that you're running and that you're sticking to your principles in this race. Where can your voters and our listeners learn more about you, and where can they go to donate to your campaign?
Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, I'm at www.jacefortexas.com. That's Ace with a J and then FORTEXAS. So all spelled out, jacefortexas.com. Follow us on X at Jace Yarbrough. We're also on other social media platforms, but you can find links to all those through our website. I'd be grateful to your listeners for their support.
Thank you, Jace. Best of luck out there on the campaign trail, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Thanks very much, Matthew. Bye-bye.
Well, if you're sick of the lies, and more lies, then maybe politics is not for you. That's what I was told by several people when I was running. And the problem is we allow these politicians to get away with lying over and over and over again, giving us promises for what they're going to do and then not actually fulfilling it. Giving us promises, oh, yes, I live in this district, and then they don't actually live in the district. We have to ask ourselves, when we send people off to Washington, D.C., or we send people off to our state legislatures, are they fighting for us, or are they fighting for those who paid to put them in? I'll tell you this right now. Follow the money. Where's the money coming from? Who's putting them in? Look for people who are actually going to be held accountable. Right now, when we've been talking about Speaker Johnson, or when we've been talking about the U.S. or the state Senate race in State Senate District 30 in Texas, who's telling the truth? Who actually represents the people? Who has the grassroots support? Who is doing what they said that they would do? Who has a track record of doing that? And who has a track record of, let's be honest here, lying to their constituency, breaking promises? Who has a history of just trying to grab for power when the opportunity presents itself? When we ask those questions, we know who not to vote for. Right now, Speaker Johnson needs to man up, apologize to the American people for lying to us as conservatives, and then step aside and let someone who's actually conservative and is actually going to keep America first in office. That person needs to be in office. Speaker Johnson, we've given him many, many chances, and maybe we give him one more. But from what I've seen recently, and what a lot of conservative Republicans have seen recently, is one message when he was trying to become speaker, another message when he's trying to stay speaker. Right now, he is trying to make it harder for conservatives to hold him accountable. That's not the direction that we need to be going as a country. If you disagree with me, put that down in the comments or send us an email. We're always happy to hear from you. In fact, if you comment down below, you feed the algorithm. That's what I've got for you today. Let's dig into this a little bit more coming into next week. It's always great to have you aboard. It's always great to have you here on the American Liberty Media Network. My name is Matthew Lucci. This is The Truth. Join us next Tuesday for the next episode. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.